All right, I keep getting interrupted on this video, or my recording software quits working, so we'll try this one more time. This video is a video from Brandon and another guy on Rumble. They get together and do a podcast with each other. The video is about the guy on Rumble getting arrested or having his car repossessed, and then showing up to court. I'm going to go through this video. I'm going to skip a good bit of it because they kind of ramble on about stuff quite a bit. And so I want to kind of focus in on the content. The one thing that I want to mention, though, is that these guys they seem to not understand the difference between the states and the federal government, because every bit of code that they're looking at is related to the federal government. It's not state code. Now, some of the code sections that are the cases that Brandon or this other guy, I can't remember his name, I think Joe or something, some of the stuff that he brings up are state things, but the majority of their argument is based off of federal codes, and so they have never explained exactly how they think this works. They just make an assumption and go with it. I will say the guy from Rumble has a Telegram channel. I joined the Telegram channel and attempted to ask some questions over there. But what ends up happening every single time with these people is they get offended because you're asking questions, and then they start calling you a troll and calling you stupid and calling you all kinds of names, because I don't understand it. If you knew the information and you had the answers, then you would just provide the answers, or give a website that went through all the code sections to show how it worked. These people do none of that. They just get very butthurt if you start asking questions, just like the last video that Brandon did, where he said that if anybody questions him, he's going to block them. That's their modus operandi. That's what they do. So let's get started, and we'll kind of pick this through as it goes.
It's been a couple months.
It's been more than a couple months there, Lusty. 2.5 months.
Yeah.
I know all the people that are out there that are watching this are they're having a sexual release right now seeing us, because this is this is such a long time coming. I mean, we have to definitely do this more often than just every 2.5 months. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on this show. So this show is going to be...
I know, right? I mean, there is a valid point. If there's too much snow in the car, it could cause a problem. Whatever. So anyway, that's a felony.
Anyway,
it's from that. Snow in the car, brake light out, said unregistered car and no insurance. He essentially just didn't understand what the insurance bond was, right? So he wrote me a ticket for that. And then he told.
So he mentions an insurance bond here. One of the things that he got in trouble for was not having insurance on his car. He actually went and created a personal bond on his own, and declared it as insurance. And the police officers don't know anything about it, and they gave him a ticket for it. I don't even know if it's legitimate or legal. He just made this stuff up on his own. And I want to say something else. I am not against having a license plate on our vehicle or having a requirement to have insurance. And part of that kind of comes into the fact that if you're going to drive a vehicle on the road, it's a fairly dangerous thing to do. And if you have an accident and you don't have insurance, and neither person has insurance, then you have a loss of property and have no way to get any of that value back. So I don't have a problem with some of the requirements that we have. And in addition, there have to be rules, and there have to be things that happen to you if you break the rules. Because if you think about a road with no laws on it, everybody's just going to do whatever they want to do. As long as I'm not hurting somebody, then I can do whatever I want to do. And the problem is that at some point when you do hurt somebody, it's it becomes a problem, and at that point it's too late. And so having the rules, and another thing is you have to remember we have the state has a duty, and their duty is to keep the public safe, to protect our property and our rights, and to keep the public as a whole safe. And so by them building the roads, because we didn't personally build the roads, they built the roads, we gave them the money for it, but they built the roads. If they're not going to have any rules in that road at all, then that means that it's not going to be safe for anybody. You literally would walk onto, drive onto the road, and whatever the heck happens is up to you. You would like to pretend that the human race is, protective and that they're going to take care of each other. But in reality, that's just not the way it goes. There's always going to be that one guy that breaks all the rules and does whatever he wants to do. So there have to be, some type of rules and processes in place to keep the public safe. And so, these guys go, to me, out fighting cops who don't know anything about the rules and regulations anyway, and it just, none of it makes a whole lot of sense to me. I think it's a misguided effort. It would make much more sense to fight actual fights than to worry about a $15 license fee that you have to pay, once every 5 years. Now, I'm not suggesting that using the driver's license and the license plate and the other stuff that goes along with it for nefarious purposes, like assigning you for, participating in contracts and all that kind of stuff, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm just speaking purely from the rules and regulations side. So I just want to get that out of the way.
He told me if he sees me again, he's going to take my car. I said, all right. So, I had a genuine concern about that because I've had my car taken a bunch of times by cops because it wasn't registered. So I'm like, yeah, I know they will take it. I know that. So that's when I did all this research and I found the deal.
I would have taken, just real quick, I would have taken some of that snow and thrown it on his car and then been like, you have snow on your car now, and I would have wrote him a ticket. Have a DOT number.
Correct.
And you did the research, and then you got a DOT number, created a plate with the DOT number on it after the first interaction. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, continue.
Okay, so this kind of gets into the crux of this, and you saw in the previous video where Brandon was actually, it is his name in it, where Brandon was suggesting that you just put a DOT diplomat tag on the back of your car and all is great. Well, this guy is proving that that's bullshit, because they pulled him over specifically because he had this fake tag on his car. He didn't have proof of insurance. He had a bond that they didn't know what the heck it was. So pretty much everything that these guys are telling everybody to go do is proving false in this one video. And so I just want to make sure that you keep in mind that these guys are showing people how to get this DMV number. They're showing them how to do a tag. They're showing them, telling them they don't have to have a license or insurance or any of this other stuff. But this one video contradicts everything that they're saying.
Which was about a week later. So I spent about a week just researching that flat out, and that's when I found all that stuff and put it all together. I found the codes.
Hell yeah.
I found the form. I actually found the form on omb.report. So if anyone wants to go check out some really cool or find some government form, omb.report, and every government form that exists is on that website.
Hell yeah.
So there you go. That's where I found the form. So it was the cop, because all of a sudden the lights came on. I said, I bet you it's the same guy. And sure enough, it was the same guy. And so he said, he's like, oh, license and registration. I'm like, are we going to do this again? He's like, he goes, I told you if I saw you again, I'm taking your car. And I said, but I didn't realize seeing me was a crime. Right? So he basically, look, they lined up like they were going to shoot me if I didn't get out of the car, so I got out of the car, right? He could have just started with that.
All right.
I said, I don't have to do shit. He told me to give me the keys to the car. I said, no. Right? I still have the keys.
Oh.
I still have the keys right now.
So he didn't tell you, like get out of the car, walk backwards, turn around, put your hand on your head. Like you just got out of the car and just waltzed off.
Yeah, I just walked away.
That's so weird. Okay, continue.
Well, I honestly, I think it's because he ran the passport and knows that there's something up with me to some degree. But
Okay, so this is another sovereign citizen claim. Now, these guys don't claim to be sovereign citizens, but everything that they do is right in line with what the sovereign citizens claim. So the claim is that you go and get, and I'm going to get in a little bit more detail with this, but the claim is you go get a passport, you fill it out, and you tell you. This is the funny part. On the passport form that you're filling out, there is nothing on it about whether or not you're a United States citizen. There's nothing, nowhere on there that you can select that you are a state citizen. And so what they do is they do little things like they put the zip code with square brackets around it and whatever, goes along with that. The problem is that the people that are getting these forms, that are filling out these passports for everybody, they're not paying attention to that crap. They're going through, they're looking at your birth certificate, they look at the information on the thing, it all looks good, so they issue your passport. So these guys claiming that the police look at your passport and they see that there's something special about you because of your passport, they have no proof that any of that is true. And the mere fact that they took this guy's car for 2 months, they kept his car while he's waiting to go to court and all this other crap, proves that they could give a rat's ass about your passport and what is on it. And in fact, you're going to find out here in a minute that he even admits that the guy had to went and ran his old driver's license to issue the ticket because he couldn't even do anything with the passport. The passport has no information on it that he could put on a ticket to reference who it was that he was given the ticket to. So the whole passport argument to me is just a dumb argument. There's no proof behind anything people say about the passport, and definitely about the do not detain list and all that other stuff. It's all made up. Every bit of it is made up. They have no proof to back any of it up.
But he was told to take the guy's car.
Because the state owns your car, that car. That's why.
Well,
I'm assuming.
yeah, and
if it was registered in the past, then the state owns it. So.
It was registered in the past. Once upon the cop. So I went to the police station the next day, and the cop told me that car had not been registered since 2012 or 2013 or something like that. Or I think.
So here's this claim. The claim is, and this is actually an interesting conversation. It's something that I'm still researching. The claim is that when you buy a car, your MSO that comes with the car, the dealership does not give it to you, they give it to the state. So the state is the property owner. They're the one that actually owns the vehicle. And then they issue you a certificate of title. And all that is basically saying that you're the operator of that vehicle, but they own the vehicle. Now, this is entirely possible that this is all true. I don't know if it is or not. Like I do know I don't have an MSO. I know that I have a certificate of title, but what the ramifications of that are, I don't really know. And these guys have no evidence to support anything that they're claiming. But here are the things that I do know is if the state owns the property, then that would make it the property of the state, not you. And if that were true, you would have no protection of property. The police could come and search this vehicle anytime they wanted to. You would have no amendment rights related to that vehicle or that thing to declare it as your personal property. There's been plenty of Supreme Court cases and cases in general that have ruled against the police coming in and seizing things and taking things and searching things inside that vehicle without a warrant or without the authority to do so. So all of that stuff kind of, to me, refutes what these guys are trying to argue, which is that the state owns the vehicle and it's not really your vehicle. So again, it's an interesting conversation. It's something that I'm still researching, but I just want to throw that out there that most of what they're fixing to talk about for the next 10 minutes is it's just conjecture. It's not, they don't actually know anything that they're talking about.
He said maybe he said 2015. He was like, the last time this car was registered was in 2015. Well, by just following orders. So it was a bunch of crap. So anyway, my court date was set like 2 months later, which was about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago. So I went in there. Now let me show you. I said, okay, well, one thing is I got the law on my side. I have case law on my side, and I'm also a national, right? I'm a national. This is my affidavit saying that I'm a national. Okay, I have.
Well, now hold on a second. You're.
I want to say something else. You've got to be very, very careful about using that word national, because without context, it means two different things. National, there is a national, a state national. So a national by itself typically would insinuate that you were talking about a state national. That's someone that owes allegiance to a state and not the United States. But you also have a national of the United States, and they only refer to it as a national. And you'll see here in a minute, he's going to refer to a code section or to a document that talks about all citizens or state citizens or state nationals. He's misread that. And the code actually says they are nationals. And then down at the bottom, it says that they're nationals of the United States. So these are two completely different things. And he's conflating them as if there's only one national, but in reality, there's two. So you have to be very, very careful about this whole conversation about whether you're a national or not. So I would be very specific and say you're a state national or a state citizen. Either one of those things are perfectly valid. What you are not is a 14th Amendment federal citizen.
You were telling the cop. Who were you telling that? I want to go in getting prepared for this particular court case because you were expecting it.
And some of the codes that I had been following.
Mm-hmm.
So, as in like an explanation with that went along this list that I put together.
Yeah, but what I want to do is I want to walk through the whole timeline and then did you ever go through these exhibits in the courtroom? Because at that point, I think we should show them. Or if they were just filed, then you can show them now. So
what I did, this packet here, this little thing here, I printed out 2 copies of this, and I brought them all in. You can see it's stamped from the court. Okay, the court.
So
stamped.
you got certified copies. Did you have to pay for those to get certified copies?
No, well I had to pay for them to get printed. But I printed them out. I gave 2 copies. I made 2 copies of this. One I gave to the prosecutor, and the court stamped it, and one was for the court. So they all have copies of this. Okay. Now,
how did you give one to the prosecutor and one to you just wrote on top of it like this copy is for the prosecutor, this copy is for the court, and you filed it with the court clerk? Is that how you did it?
That's
okay.
Right.
I'm tracking with you.
And she says, well, there's a lot of papers here, so I'm only going to stamp the top paper. I said, that's fair. And he goes, it says you want to have a trial. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. He goes, all right, do you have an attorney? I said, no. He goes, well, you're looking at incarceration. I said, really? For what? And he goes, I'll find out. I'll get back to you on that. I said, okay. So go have a seat. So about 15 minutes, and when I turned around, everyone in the courtroom was like this. I'm going to be leaving in handcuffs tonight. He prejudged the trial, and he threatened me. So now I'm under threatened arrest. And the judge already made a decision about the trial before we.
So there's a number of things that you really need to study up on related to this whole conversation. When he went to court, he should not have started a conversation with the judge about going to jail or any of this stuff. The judges do act as prosecutor, jury, and judge. So you have to be very careful about conversing with them on this stuff. And it's one of the reasons that you really ought to bring up jurisdiction right off the bat. but you don't do it directly. You do it through either an abatement process, or you do it through, which would be paperwork before you actually got to court, or you do it in court, but you do it in a manner that you're confused. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I don't see a witness here, and I'm confused about what court we're in, because I need to know what the rules and regulations are for the court, or rules and procedures, so that I know what to do in this particular case. But I'm just confused, and so what you're after is the judge to tell you what kind of court. And so you bring up the fact that this can't be an Article III court because there's no witness. I don't see a witness over here. I don't have any any of the requirements that I have to have via my Sixth Amendment, and so we can't be in a civil trial, and there's no injured party here. So what kind of court are we in? And so you kind of walk them down the path of finding out that it's a maritime court, but they're not going to tell you that. They're going to make up some term that doesn't exist, which they actually do in his case. He'll mention that here in a minute. But the point is that you need to go try to deal with this stuff up front. You don't plea, you don't have a conversation, you tell them who you are, but with regular case spelling, not with all uppercase spelling, and that you're just trying to get the rules of the court so you can make sure that you handle yourself appropriately based on those rules. And so this guy didn't actually do any of those things. He just went in and started having a conversation with the judge, which, by the way, when you start arguing with the judge about stuff, you're essentially giving him jurisdiction, because why would you converse with someone that has no jurisdiction over you? You could just ignore them. And so him having this conversation has given the court jurisdiction, and he's not really aware of that.
We've had one. So we got those three little factors right there in play. Mm-hmm. I said, no, I think I got this myself. He goes, I'm just telling you, you're not going home tonight. I said, okay. I sit back down. I'm like, great. I just got threatened by the judge.
You're probably pretty nervous at this point, shaking in your boots, fucking sweating.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I was definitely nervous, I'm like, crap. I can't go to jail, I got children, and first of all, I had insurance, which was actually something I overlooked. I didn't bring it. So I should have brought the insurance bond, which I didn't do for some reason. I didn't think of it. I figured that all the other stuff I had would be enough. Mm-hmm. All right, so there's that. So then now court goes from 4 to 6. They call me up at 6 when the courtroom is empty and there's nobody left in there.
Now that makes more sense.
Okay. No one's in there. It is empty. It's just the two bailiffs, every aspect of this thing in every way possible. So really they had nothing.
So at this point would be a good point to show the exhibits. Share and then...
Okay. All exhibits required a review or self-authenticating per New Jersey rule. It was a tribe that they went to court.
Yeah.
Now, I want to mention these court cases. Whenever somebody gives you a court case and they are attempting to have a conversation or to put forth an opinion, you should always go look up that court case and try to find what it is that they're talking about. For example, this first court case is actually an Indian court case, completely unrelated to what he's actually in court for. And then a lot of the court cases that they point to, for example, there's one in particular, I can't remember off the top of my head what its name is, but there's one that talks about the fact that the traveling is a right, not a privilege, and the state cannot regulate your right to travel. That they can't turn a right into a privilege. But in that same case, as you go down through the conversation that is taking place with the court, they do say that the state does have the ability to issue licenses and to have rules and regulations to operate on those particular roadways, because the state created it. You gave them the power to regulate it for the safety of the public, and that they have the ability to do that stuff. So even the cases where they hand pick a little clause out of it where the court said a certain thing that appears to support their claim, if you continue to read the case, you'll actually find out that the case probably heads in a completely different direction than what they're trying to imply that it does. So don't look at anybody's references for cases and quotes that they've pulled out of the case without actually going to look at what the court case actually describes, because it sometimes is quite different than what you originally thought.
Right. Washington State Department of Licensing versus Cougar Den. This was a tribe, but
Ooh, Cougar Den. That sounds like a place I'd go to.
you're non-resident. You can use the highway without
They
cost.
use the word driver there. I wonder what the year is on that. I wonder what year that is, because they use the word driver there.
Yeah, I forget the year. Well, I got it right here. I'll tell you right now.
This is also talking about non-residents. It's actually talking about somebody that lives in Alabama, but they drive through Georgia. And it's essentially saying that they have the right to use the roadways as well. Again, it's not related to what they're actually discussing.
Certificate of title cleaned up the contract associated with point A to point B. That's how specific they are to drive off. So this is what we're talking about here. In Joe's case, it was definitely one particular human being that he was having a problem with, just to be clear.
And I still, with the primary purpose of their establishment, and is therefore a proper use in the absence of any restrictive regulation. Okay, so we're talking about a privilege, and that's just talking about using the roads to make money is a privilege. But to use the roads to travel, it's not a privilege, it's a right.
Yeah.
Again, that would be a good case to go look up. In fact, that was in the jurisprudence. It probably has references to the cases that they made this conclusion. But again, they say that it's a right, and it is a right, but the states do have the ability to regulate the use of that. It's you have a right to travel. They're not taking away your right. They're just saying that if you want to use our roads to do that travel, you don't want to cut across all your neighbor's property to get to town to get your groceries. If you want to use our roadways, then there are rules that you have to follow to use those roadways. So they're not taking away the right. They're just specifying that there are certain rules that you have to follow if you're going to use their roadways.
Okay, so there is a lot of stuff in here. Because the operation of a motor vehicle is a privilege, the legislator of each state. By the way, these numbers in here just tell you what court case it came from. That's how all the American jurisprudence and corpus juris secundum stuff is put together. Okay.
And just to be clear, a motor vehicle is literally defined as a car or truck or something like that is involved in commercial activity or commercial use.
So again, they are referencing federal codes with the definitions that are for the federal codes. They are not talking about the states. There is a separation between state governments and federal government. They're not related. They do not intertwine, intermingle. They are completely isolated from each other. So when if they're going to use federal codes, then that means they need to go get a District of Columbia driver's license, which in their argument, I would actually support that they don't have to have, because they're not operating commercially inside the District of Columbia. So if that's what they were doing, I wouldn't be having quite the issue with what they're saying. But when the state, even if the state implements the code that's from the federal regulations, which few of them actually do that verbatim, if they go in and supply different definitions than those that were in the federal jurisdiction or in the federal codes, then those are the definitions that you use at that state level. So it's, these guys are arguing something that is completely unrelated to state licenses and then trying to pretend that it, has some relevancy.
Right. Yeah, it said right here, for hire. That was one of the things I was hammering home on here. Motor vehicles are for hire. It's for
Is that the state basically can't physically even really see you unless they can see you through the eyes of some kind.
So at this point, they're talking about motor carriers. Motor carriers is what they use to get this license, this number. And it's not a license plate number. It is just a number that the federal government issues you as a motor carrier. And so they get a private motor carrier license number. And again, it is not a license plate. That's why they have to go make up their own license plate. It's just a number. And they make up a license plate with that number on it. That's why the state police and the sheriff have no idea what that number represents, because they don't have anything to do with a motor carrier permit, because that's literally what it is. It's not a license plate number. But they put it on a license plate and pretend that it's their license plate number. This is a federal thing that they're doing. And if you go and watch the videos where they actually tell you how to do this, they are telling you how to set up a trust, a private trust in another country, in order to be able to properly fill out the paperwork, which is a federal form, and I would argue a federal felony for filling out this form with incorrect information on it, because you've essentially now gone and you've literally used Google Earth to find some address over in another country to then turn around and try to create a private trust and then use that private trust to then get that license or that number. And so this entire process that they're actually recommending that everybody goes and does, to me, is a federal crime in and of itself. Like I wouldn't touch any of this process with a 10-foot pole, because it has no backing in actual legislation. They're misreading the code sections and then assuming that they can go do what they did. And the guy literally had this on his car when he got pulled over. So it proves it doesn't work. And yet they're, having this argument about this whole process.
Kind of a commercial activity or commercial something, right? And that's why the private motor carrier is, you are still it's free to get a deal.
guaranteed by the First Amendment. Okay, Congress under Article 1, section can only regulate the occupation in interstate commerce and not travelers. So they can't regulate travelers, only commerce. Okay, interstate travel. The right of interstate travel is a basic fundamental right recognized and guaranteed by the United States Constitution, and is virtually unqualified. Okay, the right to travel is constitutionally protected against private as well as public encroachment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, remember these numbers are just case law. They come from case law. So I just leave them in there because that way it's not altered.
I only want to say one thing here. This whole right to travel thing is very interesting. These cases do say what he's saying, but you got to remember, back in the day, people just traveled. They just went from place to place. And so, the argument is not whether you have the right to travel, because you do have that right. The problem is, how are you going to get there? So, for example, if I own property and you want to travel, but you're going to come across my private property to exercise this right, well, you don't have a right to come onto my property to do that. You have a right to travel, but you do not have a right to travel in any way, in any means, and by any piece of property that you want to do that exercise that right. So you have a right to freedom of speech, but you can't just march into my house and start preaching to me, because I have a right to property and you just violated my right to try to execute your right. And so this whole thing gets really interesting to talk about. And so I'm not arguing that these cases don't exist or that you don't even have the right to travel on the public highways. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just putting forth the argument that it isn't quite black and white when you start talking about this, because it's someone's property that you're actually traveling on. In this case, it's the public's property, but it's still a piece of property that you have handed over the responsibility of managing to the state for the purpose of keeping the public safe. And so now you're trying to argue that, well, you keep them safe, but I'm going to do whatever I want to on this road. And that's where things start getting a little muddy.
Hold on 1 second, okay?
Why, again, I think that the moral of this story that I would like to keep banging
And they're pretty thorough about it too.
not very vague, this or not that, because then the next,
right?
Oh, holy fuck. Wow,
Right.
That's big.
Yeah, it's
So 15 USC 1 basically talks about trusts and stuff like that. When someone is trying to prevent commerce, it's a monstrous felony,
right.
up to 10 years in prison, up to a $100 million. It's one of the biggest, nastiest felonies I think I've ever seen. The way that the contract works, even though the contract itself is fraudulent, is that you basically donated your property to the state in order to it's unacceptable. And I understand that.
I'm not going to say a whole lot. This is what I was talking about earlier, where he's claiming that the property is owned by the state and therefore you don't have any rights. I'm just saying, like I said earlier, that doesn't prove out in a court of law.
It's bullshit. And I understand all these things, but that's not.
In my situation, I bought the car from someone privately.
That my name is Williams,
Court case, I learned something.
Please remove this vehicle from, I bought this vehicle from blank, 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 or you can put some other information in there and just say this vehicle will not be involved in commerce from this point forward or any commercial activity, thus will not be classified as a motor vehicle any longer. Please have the certificate of title of this vehicle destroyed, and then please remove this vehicle from your system as a motor vehicle, and then please send me a letter once this has been completed for my records. From this point forward, this vehicle will be transferred using notarized bill of sale. Get it notarized, get the affidavit notarized, and then send that information in to the Department of Motor Vehicles headquarters. That now in my head, being devil's advocate, now you can use this case law. But before you do that, you can't actually use this case law because you don't.
So again, every single thing that he just said to do, none of it has been proven. None of it has any law or any codes to back up what he just said. He just presented an entire flow of process to say that this is what you need to do in order to be able to use the codes that are in this code section, when there's no, where did he get all that? He literally just made that up. So don't follow this guy's rules. If he can't present the evidence or the backing to back what he just said, then it's just conjecture, and all you're going to do is get yourself in a lot of trouble, where I don't even know. The state probably wouldn't even do what he just said. They'd probably just throw your letter in the garbage. But he's literally just made that all up.
You don't own the property.
That's important. That means New Jersey. Yeah.
You paper terrorist.
After an hour alone in there, they came out looking like they just hauled rocks for 10 hours, right? Like they just looked so beat up. I'm like, is that for me, or is that maybe that's just how they are? I don't.
This is a claim that he was making about the cop going into the DA's office, which he claims that he could see them in the office from the courtroom. I don't know what kind of courtroom they're sitting in, but it's all hearsay. None of this has any bearing whatsoever on what they're actually discussing, so it's kind of pointless.
I don't know. But then they call me up. I go down. I go up. I sit down, and I look over. The cop's red-faced. He's red-faced. He's doing this. He's like,
cop and the.
I gave him my passport, I gave him the company snapshot, and I gave him the insurance bond. He was confused
Great.
by that.
That's what you should have. Yeah, that's great.
That's what I gave him, and he was confused by it. He flat
More proof that this entire process that the two of these guys have made up, and I'm sure they copied it from somebody else, it don't work. I mean, if the cop doesn't know what you're handing them, then what is the point in handing it to him? You're literally handing the bottom of the rung, the guy that knows the least about the entire process, a piece of paper, or in his case, a group of pieces of paper, and the guy doesn't know what the heck you just handed him. So what exactly is the point?
out said that. So then after those questions, the judge turned to me and said, would you like to ask the cop any questions? So I said, yes. So on the tickets, I think I have them. He gave me each ticket.
There we go. Look at that, boy. That looks fun.
Oh yeah, these are all the tickets. Oh, there's more. So
There you go. Those are some beautiful
on each
bonds
ticket,
you got
there's
there.
an offense, and then it has the New Jersey statute that was broken. And because he told me that he knew all this about the law and stuff like that, I went through and I said, okay, can you tell me what Title 39 3-38 is about? Oh, I don't know what that one's about. Okay. You know what this one's about? I read each one to him, and I read all the statutes to him. Each ticket I read to him. Which code? Do you know the code? Do you know what that pertains to? He does not know any of it. So I proved right there, the cop is writing tickets, but he doesn't even know the law. He's just saying he knows the law. Somebody knows the law for him, probably the computer, where he's typing in what offense he thinks I'm committing, and then it prints out the code, right? When I read some of those didn't have any, there was no charge. There was no violation of anything. Like one he wrote fictitious plates, but when I read the code, it just said that New Jersey can charge a $4.50 fee for vanity plates. That's all it was. I said, there's not even a crime here. What the heck? This is so bizarre. So he's just making up stuff, right? He's making any kind of claim that is being put onto someone, there's got to be some kind of remedy for. And 3, I proved that the judge and the court has to uphold my constitutionally protected rights. All right. And anything that does violate the Constitution in any way whatsoever needs to be disregarded and whatever. I also proved that I had no willful intent, which means I had no intention of harming or hurting anybody by my actions. Okay. I also proved that I did everything I could to satisfy police on the roads by having a registration number showing, because the one cop was like going nuts about it. He says, you need to be registered because if your car's not registered, it's dangerous to have on the road. And I said, why is it dangerous? He said, what if you hit somebody? I said, you can hit somebody.
You're saying, speaking to the cop, you're referring to the same cop, the sergeant that was
Flat out. I said, well, that's interesting because that's where New Jersey adopted the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, where the DOT number comes from. And he's
registration. What the stupidest thing above the department, just from the fucking
that code, he didn't know anything about it. And it says non-residents are exempt from licensing and registration enactments. And so I made the motion to dismiss failure to state a claim for which relief can be granted.
a second time.
This is the first time, so I did that.
Okay, first time.
So I did. Well, obviously, I had to do a second time then, right? So he said motion denied, but never gave me a reason why. He just said motion denied. No, he said, I'm sorry. He said, well, this isn't a civil court. This is a criminal court. So, but there is a similar motion in the criminal court, so I'll honor.
So again, you're in a criminal court, and he should have validated that from the very beginning. And in a criminal court, you're either going to have a contract that you have violated, which would be a maritime court where you've got an international contract where you ask the prosecutor to present this contract, if that's the court, which it is the court, or you're in a criminal Article 3 court, which means there has to be a witness that is testifying against you for violating some right of theirs. So this whole thing should have stopped right there. All this conversation and all this evidence and stuff that he's putting forth is pointless because he should have stopped it at the very beginning. And I'm not faulting him for not knowing that, because it's kind of a crazy situation. In fact, anybody listening to me, I probably sound like I'm crazy. But he's trying to have jurisdictional arguments about something that he's already gifted the court with jurisdiction. Again, he can bring it up anytime he wants, but he needs to stand up and actually bring it up. He's just flirting with it and then dropping it as soon as the judge says that he's overruling it.
That, but motion denied. So I said, well, is this a court of law, a court of equity? Right? He said, this is a quasi-criminal court.
So again, there is the name of the court that the judge has now put forth. And so the very next thing out of his mouth should have been, can you supply me the rules and regulations or rules and procedures for this type of court? Because I've never heard of this court. I don't know what kind of court. I don't know how to act. I don't know how to plea. I don't know how I'm supposed to deal with this unless I know what the rules are. And then this is a game of the judge trying to not admit that you're actually in a maritime court and you're not actually in a common law court. And you just have to play along with the game and ask questions and try to, as nicely as possible, try to get the court to dismiss the case, because they have no jurisdiction in the matter, and they know they don't, but they're gonna play games with you and try to, get you in some way to give them jurisdiction again, because now you've taken jurisdiction away by asking that question, and now it's up to them to get you to submit to them again. And that's why him just allowing them to say that this is the type of court, and then he's befuddled and, lets them go and goes on to another question. He's just giving them jurisdiction again.
Now, he kind of threw me in for a loop there because I didn't expect that. I thought he would just say, he said, if you want equity, you have to go to a different court. He actually named the court, which I don't remember what it was, because I was surprised that he actually named the court for me to go to get me in jail. So I was a little.
No. I'm just thinking. I know. I'm just thinking.
Isn't that something that carries motors? I go, no, and I read the definition of motor carrier to him. But he kept acting as the prosecutor throughout the case. So I said, all right, well, you know what? Motion dismiss, lack of jurisdiction. He goes, like the judge does this. He goes, we got jurisdiction. Motion denied. Just like that, right? Not even look.
And again, he had jurisdiction because the guy's standing there arguing with him. Why would you argue with somebody that doesn't have any power over you? So he has given them jurisdiction, and the judge is correct that he actually did have jurisdiction.
Looking up, nothing. He looked down because he knew when I said that he did not have jurisdiction. And
did you ask to clarify that one at all? Did you?
No, I said, I'm glad you say that. Because right on top, I said, I'm like, well,
so this was the point when you pulled out the affidavit of status.
Right. So I pulled out the affidavit. He says motion denied. I said, well, that's interesting because I have this. I said, I declare under penalty of perjury in the laws of the United States of America, the foregoing is true and correct. As defined by the Immigration and Nationality Act, all U.S. citizens are U.S. nationals. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution states, and he goes, stop right there. Did you submit that into the court? I said, yes, I did. He goes, don't read that into the court record. All right, we'll keep it on as an exhibit, but don't read that into the record. I don't want that read into the record. Now, who wants to hear what the judge, who did read this because he knew what I was going to say, what he didn't want me to read into the record? I'm going to read it for y'all right now. Y'all.
Yeah, let's read it.
Well, I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct. As defined by the Immigration and Nationality Act, all U.S. citizens are U.S. nationals.
Okay. This is another example of him not understanding what is being said. That code section that he just referenced is actually, let me pull up Obsidian here. So that code section is right here. It's actually 1401. There's actually 1401 and 1408, and they're basically the same thing. But this is talking about nationals of the United States. You see, it says nationals and citizens of the United States. There are two definitions for a national. There's a state national, or a national by itself, and then there is a national of the United States. A national of the United States is the same thing as a citizen of the United States. So they're both one and the same thing. Oh, how did I do that? I got distracted yesterday and had to cut my video in the middle, so I'm finishing up today. As I was saying yesterday, the United States citizenship thing that he was talking about in his video, and we're going to get back over to it, is talking about a United States national, or a national of the United States. They're totally different definitions from a state national, or what they call a national. They don't actually call it a state national. They just say a national and a national of the United States. All of the code section that he's referring to is actually referring to a national of the United States. So putting that in your affidavit of citizenship, or affidavit of, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really make a lot of sense, because you're not a 14th Amendment citizen, and you're not a national in respect to what they're trying to imply you are. So let's get back over here to the video and pick up where we left off.
The 14th Amendment of the Constitution states, all persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Because he knew what I was going to say. What? He didn't want me to read into the record. I'm going to read it for y'all right now. Y'all.
Yeah.
So I say, I, Joseph Michael Lustica, being of sound mind and lawful age, do solemnly declare that I'm a free man born in the land of New York. I'm not restricted by the 14th Amendment, as I have no obligation to a 14th Amendment allegiance or sovereignty, and no obedience to anyone under the 14th Amendment. Okay? And I say, it says, my mother was born in the land of New York. My father's unknown to me. And as such, I cannot make any claim of his birth and nationality, as neither can anyone else. And according to 8 U.S.C. 1408, nationals but not citizens of the United States, a person of unknown parentage found in the outlying possession of the United States under the age of 5, will be a national but not a citizen of the United States. Okay? So it says it clearly.
So again, he's using this code section in an attempt to say that he's not a citizen of the United States, but what he's actually declaring himself as is a national of the United States. So this code section, I don't know if I copied it in here. I didn't, but this entire code section is actually talking about a national of the United States. So he's declaring that he's not a citizen, but he is a national of the United States. That's not something that you want to do. You're not a national of the United States. You want to be very, very clear that you are not a 14th Amendment citizen. You're not a citizen of the United States, and you're not a national of the United States. You are a state national or a state citizen. So if you're going to make a declaration like he's doing, and you do probably need to do that, be very specific that don't even refer to any of the code sections that he's talking about, because they are completely irrelevant to your status as a citizen. He apparently was born in a state by a mother that was a state citizen, and he doesn't know what his father was, but it's kind of irrelevant. His mother was a citizen, so he's a citizen of that state. He has a birth certificate of that state. So he's not a national in the sense that he's arguing here. It's not a good argument to take.
Clearly states that not knowing my fraternal parentage, I cannot make any claim of citizenship to the United States, but rather that I am a national. So the United States being defined according to UCC 9-307, location of the debtor, location of the United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. I was neither born or have ever resided in the United States. I am therefore a non-resident and alien to the citizenship of the 14th Amendment. According to 26 U.S.C. 7701 B1B, non-resident alien, An individual is a non-resident alien if such individual is neither a citizen of the United States nor a resident of the United States.
So that is a proper definition. It's also interesting to note that they didn't actually give you a definition for the non-resident alien. They didn't give you an example of someone that is a non-resident alien. They actually told you what it is not, which is it's not a citizen of the United States and they're not a resident of the United States. The United States national conversation is an interesting one because you kind of have to dig deeper to find out where they're using that, because what they're attempting to do is they're attempting to take anyone that claims they're not a citizen, in other words, they were not born into the District of Columbia and they didn't naturalize into the District of Columbia. They're trying to make them a national of the United States. In other words, they're trying to circumvent the 14th Amendment where it says you have to be born or naturalized into the United States, by saying that even if you weren't that, you can still be a national of the United States by meeting any of these other criteria. The problem is that we don't meet any of the other criteria, and he's incorrect in assuming, Joe is in assuming that he does meet that criteria. He's that list, that part of the code is all about trying to get someone that was not born in the United States, in the District of Columbia, to admit that they actually are a national of the United States, because it still gives the federal government jurisdiction over them. So even though they're not classified as a citizen, they're still fitting into this code. So you need to kind of understand what the point of this code is, because it's not exactly what he's saying. But he is correct that he is a non-resident alien, and that fits into the state national, or the national with no, nothing on the end of it.
And that's the IRS's definition of the United States, which we all know what that is. District of Columbia. And then here's a key part here. It says, furthermore, I am not a resident of any state under the 14th Amendment, and hereby publicly disavow any contract, form, agreement, application, certificate, license, permit, or any other document that I or any other.
Now, again, I disagree with what he's saying here. He's saying that he's not, according to this code section, he's not a citizen of any state or a resident of any state. The problem, again, is that they are using federal definitions. And if you go to the states and actually look up the word resident, it'll give you a different definition. And usually, at least in the state of Georgia, it's pretty specific about what a resident of the state of Georgia is. And it's not what they say at the federal level. So his claim that he's not a resident of the state is not actually true if you go look at the state codes themselves.
The person may have signed expressly or by acquiescence that would bring me any privileges and thereby ascribe to me rights and duties under a substantive system of law other than that of the constitutional contract of 1787 for the United States of America and for the constitutions for the several states of the Union, exclusive of the 14th Amendment. And then I say, I've made the above determinations and this declaration under no duress, coercion, promise of reward or gain, no undue influence, and of my own free will, with no mental reservation, with no... It is. It's commerce. So you're in commerce. I'm like, but driving and traveling it's about occupation. And then he didn't care. He just reigned judgment, said I was guilty in all charges, and I got like a $4,000 fine I have to pay or something like that. It's $4,320. That's what I gotta pay.
Well, you can just turn that bad boy into a check and mail it back. But anyways, that's besides the point.
Well, I'm gonna.
So we're going to get into his comment that he just made there, because they have a lot of videos on that craziness as well. But it's interesting to note a couple things. Number one, they claim that if you put this tag, which was in the previous video, on your car, that it is a legal tag and that you don't have to buy tags for the state. They've just disproven that claim because this guy got his car taken for over 2 months, and now he's got to pay a $4,000 fine for going into court and not having insurance and not having the things that they said that he needed. Again, he gave the court the jurisdiction, and so they took advantage of it. He's not far off base with his claims, but he's not understanding the separation between the federal and the state. And so he's using federal codes to try to say something that the state doesn't respect. They don't agree with. Now, in Joe's defense, he has finally responded to me related to this state versus federal thing, and he says he's going to do another video proving that I'm wrong. So we'll wait and see what he finds when he starts doing that. I gave him some code sections in Georgia to actually go and review. So we'll see if he actually puts the effort into actually looking at this and what he comes back with. Maybe I'm wrong on the states adopting the federal codes in its entirety, and the definitions at the state level don't have anything to do with us. I just don't see how that's possible. So we'll finish. I think they're about done, but we'll let them go for another couple minutes and see if they have anything else to say.
I'm going to appeal it.
Now, the part that I find very fascinating when we talked earlier is he originally told you you're going to be leaving in handcuffs. Once he reigned judgment, the bailiff and the prosecutor and the court and the judge just stood up and just walked out of the courtroom like it was the end of the day. Let's go have some beers at the pub, or like how did it end?
Well, pretty much I stood up and I started to walk away, and I'm telling you, the prosecutor and the cop, they were still sitting there like this. They weren't like, all right, we won. No, nothing like that. They're like.
And again, the reason why.
No handcuffs either, by the way.
Yeah. And like the bailiff didn't even look at you. Like it was just as if just thank you for coming. Have a nice day kind of a deal, or what was.
I left the building. And he came outside and said, "Oh, you got to go talk to the clerk before you leave." I said, "Oh."
Who came out? Who came out?
The bailiff.
Oh, the bailiff. Okay.
He came out and said, "Oh, you got to talk to the clerk before you leave." I said, "But I'm doing an appeal." He goes, "Yeah, but you still have to at least make an arrangement with her." I said, "All right." So I went back in, and
what does that mean? Make an arrangement?
Payment arrangement. They just want me to set up like some kind of payment thing because technically, as of the moment before I make the appeal. I still owe this, $4,000, right? But until then, once I make the appeal, all that stuff is put on stay. The judgment and everything is put on stay, which means it has no effect until the appellant court makes a decision.
How did you make a payment arrangement? What did you say? What did you say?
She just said, she's like, we don't have an address for
in the motor vehicle sector is what that means.
Right.
Let's go ahead and review that now. That would be, and then also like, if he tells you can't speak into the court record, it's like, okay, well now hold on a second. I didn't realize that my rights were being abrogated in any way. Are you guys under the assumption that I waived my rights? I didn't take on an attorney. So, how is this not a violation of 18 U.S.C. 242? Like, I just don't, like, I'm not tracking right now. Like, you say I can't talk. Because it's one of those things where you got to think of it in reverse.
Squeak it out any way you can. I declare independence of the laws of the United States of America, that I'm a national and not a citizen of the United States. Just shove it in there real quick. Oh, no, don't say that in here. Well, I did.
Taking that a step farther, from my point of view, if I was going to write an affidavit like that, I would say I would have a durable power of attorney, and I would say that my national, as an agent on behalf of the principal, if there's an why just shutting the fuck up and not saying anything is so powerful, because then they have to prove all that shit, right? It's no different than even when you give them an ID, right? Even the passport has your name in all capital letters.
So I want to address. So a lot of people say to just shut up and not say anything, and then they have to prove everything. But that's not entirely the best course of action, because if you just stand mute, then they're going to railroad you. I mean, you're not participating, and they're just going to do whatever they were going to do in the first place. So, and you run the risk of having a bench warrant taken out for you for not showing up to court, because when they ask you who your name is and you say that that's not me, or you don't say anything at all, well, then they're just going to put out a bench warrant. So it's better to go into the courtroom and ask questions. You know, I'm confused what kind of court this is, and I just want to make sure that I'm operating by the proper rules and procedures. Could you explain to me, because I noticed there's no witness here, there's no claim against me, I don't know exactly what's going on, so could you tell me where we're at? Like, what kind of court is this? And they'll, you know, is this a criminal court? And when he says, yes, this is a criminal case, then you say, well, but there's no witness, so we can't be in an Article 3 court, so what kind of court are we? He's going to make up some BS, and then you just tell him, well, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I don't know what those rules and procedures are. Could you get the, you know, attorney, the prosecutor, to provide me those so that I know that how to operate in this courtroom? And I mean, you're going to play games, but don't just stand there and say nothing. Just ask questions. You are confused, so just be confused and ask questions, get the answers, and don't allow the judge to run railroad over you, because it's your life and your property that's at stake, not his. And so he can't just sit there and take over the courtroom and be judge, jury, and prosecutor all at the same time, and give you no rights and no ability to speak. Just point out, you know, for the record, Your Honor, are you saying that I don't have a Fourth Amendment right, a Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment? I'm confused. Where are you getting the power to operate the courtroom in this way? But just be nice and ask questions. So anyway.
So you got to be a little careful. It's like, oh, is this your identity? Like, well, it's a card that's attached to my identity. Oh, well, are you this person on the card? And that's a bit tough. That's a bit tough to answer. You know, it's a bit tough for me to answer, because the thing is that all they want to do is they want to, the only evidence they need.
And what he's talking about here is actually a pretty good point. If they say they get your license, or they have your license, and they say, are you the person that's on this license? Your answer is no, that's not you. That's a ID, and it references something, but you're a man, you're a living man or a woman. You're not actually an ID. And it's not a infactual statement. The all uppercase letter thing, here's the thing. There is no doubt that the court is operating on a fiction. They are a fiction, and they have to have you as a fiction in order for them to do anything to you. So there's no doubt that that's happening. This whole uppercase name thing, though, I'm not 100% sold on the validity of that argument. I have not seen any definitive. People say, oh, well, you go to the rules or the grammar document that the government has, and it tells you that all cap names are fictions. Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't say anything about it. Now, one person, I don't remember who it was. In fact, I think it was Brandon, told me that, oh, well, it's in an older version of it, but he didn't know what version, and he doesn't have a copy of it. That should be a document that you keep front and center. But nobody's ever produced a document to show that what this all cap name means. I would love to go back to court records and stuff from before they actually had typewriters, to see how they wrote people's names, because I will bet you they did not write them in all capital letters. I think that this whole capital letter thing kind of got started once computers came along, but I don't know that for sure. I just know that I've not found any evidence to support this all cap name thing. So I'd be kind of careful about going too far down that road, because it may just end up making you look stupid.
Need is your own statement. Well, it's not actually in the physical world. Well, here's a question for you. If you're the agent on behalf of the principal, are you even like you're not there on special or general appearance. You're just there as the agent.
So this is something else that I did not mention in the beginning, but it's something that you need to do absolutely anytime you show up in court, is you need to tell them on the record that you are there under special appearance. What that means is that if you just show up to court and you say, yes, this is me, or, yes, I plead innocent or guilty or whatever, you're giving the court jurisdiction and you're waiving your rights to be able to argue constitutional matters. You're kind of, getting into their jurisdiction and letting them do whatever they want to do. By making a special appearance or telling them specifically that you're making a special appearance, you're actually putting them on notice that you're reserving all of your rights, that you're there to ascertain exactly what's going on in the courtroom or what this is about, but you're not waiving any of your rights and you're not giving the court jurisdiction over you in any way, shape, or form. You're only there to have a conversation about what is happening so that you can defend yourself, and that's it. So it is very, very important from the very, in fact, I would probably say before you even tell them your name, you should say, I am here under special appearance, and my name is, Glenn Hancock, but I don't spell my name in all capital letters, so I'm not sure if you're referencing me, the man, or if you're referencing some fictional character. I don't know, but to be clear, I spell my name with a capital G, lowercase Lenn, and so forth. So the special appearance thing is actually very, very important to remember.
Well, that is special appearance.
Is that right? Are you
Right,
sure
because-
about that?
Well, because the principal's under their jurisdiction, but the agent is not.
I mean, that almost sounds like a better choice than saying special appearance because special appearance is like, fuck you know what I mean? But when you say I'm the agent on behalf of the principal, it's not very combative.
You can also say I'm here in propria persona, which also removes jurisdiction from them, or sui
well,
juris.
but then no, I know that, but then it's like, okay, so are you saying you're the principal? Like that's the question. Like being devil's advocate, being the judge. That's what I would be like. Oh, so you're the principal?
Well,
and then if
What we have here are two people arguing something that they know nothing about. I'd be very careful. Special appearance is actually denoted in the code section for the court procedures. They know what that means. All this other stuff, they're just theorizing on what it means and what you're saying when you say it. I would not risk, saying something other than special appearance, because that is actually a court official term.
if the answer to that question is yes, you're fucked.
the idea of a boomerang, because it would fly and then come back, so the kangaroo would jump out of the way and then get hit with it afterwards, because they didn't expect it to come back. Which was a presumption, because I never said I did. I didn't tell them I buy gas. Right? Now, I didn't say I don't buy gas either. Right? So
You would say that if you're assuming that I buy gas, you would need to, as the prosecution, I mean, you really shouldn't even be prosecuting me because it's illegal.
well, he knew that he could squeak that one in there and then rain judgment real quick by trying to say I acquiesced to buying gas, making me in commerce, and then making me guilty. But he knows that that's a one-time only use. He can never use.
So I'm going to end the video here because they're really just talking about a bunch of crazy stuff now. So again, I do not have a problem paying taxes on gas to help pay for the roads, and I don't even have a problem having a license plate or a driver's license, because if you think about running trying to keep the public safe, if you have the ability to have no ID, no identification on your car, it opens up the world for the criminals in a way that was just awesome. Like they could do anything they want to do. And now for the law abiding citizens, as usual, we end up being the ones that get screwed because we're trying to abide by the rules and the regulations. But by giving everybody the ability to drive around with no tag on their car, no identification, you're really just making it very, very difficult for the police to protect the people, or the state or the county to protect the people. It would be a really tough job, especially given the number of people that actually live in the communities now. So I don't have a problem with all that stuff. And their arguments that they're trying to put forth now are related to this whole thing. The one thing I do have a problem with, though, is that there is a huge difference between you protecting the community and then you becoming a nuisance because you've got so many rules and regulations that the community can't even keep up with all of them. You know, they say ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but when your laws are, you know, millions of pages long, well, then it kind of becomes an excuse, because how in the world am I supposed to keep up with all of these rules and regulations that are out there? And the other problem I do have is, and I've been arguing it during this video, is I do have a problem with the way that they're conducting these courts, because they are bringing you into court purely about making money. They're not, it has nothing to do with your rights or the rights of other citizens. It is purely about the state making money, and that's it. It's all commerce. And so these courts that we're showing up to are fictions. They're ad hoc courts, and they should not exist. So I have no respect for the, you know, traffic tickets or any of the other stuff that they're giving us, because of that. If we had a legal court that we were actually going to, and we all agreed that these are the rules of the road, and to participate on the road, that these are the processes, and it was all open discourse that we were having about how we were going to, you know, deal with whatever we're doing on the roads, that would be a different story. But the way that they have laid this out and the way that they have started to enforce it, to me, has just gotten completely out of control. So I'm all about fighting the court system. I'm all about, you know, trying to correct the wrongs that have been done to us. But I just don't see how you could legitimately run a government to protect the people, because that's the only function of the government, and then have no ID, no laws, no way to enforce it or anything else. So there's got to be some major changes done, but I think these guys are taking it a little bit too far in the other direction, because they're not thinking through what's going to happen if they actually are successful.